Yo, it's Nathan Barna here, coming at you with another video. Today I wanted to talk about organic food, of course. Something that is very dear and near to me, something I'm passionate about, as you will see. It's unfortunate that this season even has to be a discussion, and it feels like you have to convince and debate people as to why eating organic food is the better route. But I'm coming from a perspective of achieving maximal performance. That's my mission, that's my dream. I want to show people that it's through optimizing your health and wellness that you can achieve optimal performance. Most people think that health and performance are two sides and that you have to choose one or the other, but it's been my experience that focusing on doing the things, developing the habits, implementing the practices that make my body healthier and make it function better, those are the things that move the needle when it comes to increasing my performance and making gains in the gym and getting stronger and ultimately competing at the level that I want to be at. I've been through numerous injuries and down different roads, and all of them have led to different injuries and different roadblocks until I started to realize these different principles through my studies and through my practice and experience. And one of them has been switching to an all organic diet. And just from an experiential level, from my own experience and my own anecdote per se, it has definitely been a game changer for me. I remember when I first got into training, and even, when I was a few years in, I was always having to deal with different, nagging injuries and chronic pain. And there always seemed like there was something that just didn't feel right in my body. And a lot of times I felt like, my joints and my tendons could just snap in any given lift. And, I'm sure, a lot of my powerlifting and strength athletes and bodybuilding friends can relate to this. But when I started making that switch to eating organic foods, and, really right now I eat 100% organic diet, it has definitely made a big difference in how my body feels day to day, and my level of mental clarity and just my overall performance in the gym, how my joints feel, how my recovery is, how my muscles feel, how my nervous system being able to fire and do what I ask of it to do, even when I'm deep into training and under fatigue. And even times when maybe I don't get the best night of sleep, I know I have a reservoir of nutrition to rely upon. And that's really what it comes down to. It's nutrition. I mean, that's what our body is seeking when we put food into it. And that's where you have to realize that food is not just energy like we like to think of it as. We always, with our overly scientific paradigm and overly materialistic and isolation-oriented paradigm, we've tried to break food down into calories and proteins and fats and carbs, and just, as long as you eat a certain amount of calories, or as long as you hit a certain macronutrient profile, that's all you have to worry about in order to achieve the level of performance or the level of body composition that you want to achieve. And what that's created, and a lot of what I see, is people that they may look good in the mirror, but they have all sorts of problems. Their hair is falling out. They're always tired. They might have erectile dysfunction problems in the bedroom. They're always getting injured, and the list goes on and on and on. And it's very common nowadays because of this very simplistic view on what food is. Like, yeah, you might be able to get down to a certain body fat and manipulate your weight on the scale through counting calories and your macronutrients. But if your body isn't getting the nutrition that it needs, it's not going to have the resources that it needs to function optimally. And that's really what it comes down to here. That's why choosing organic food is a better option in the long run, because, and there's a lot of gray area here, which I don't have time to get into, because, a lot of companies have interest in keeping us conditioned and programmed to believe that eating conventionally raised food is the same as eating organically raised food. And even big companies invest in creating their own organic certification just to say that something is organic. And that's where, again, just because something says it's organic doesn't necessarily mean it's organic. But that's another discussion that don't have the time to get into right now, but I probably will make a separate video or post or whatever about that topic. But right now I'm focused on, okay, why is organic better, and why it's not only better for you, but also better for everyone around you and better for the environment and the world as a whole. See, the food that we eat it can only be as good as the soil in which it's from, just as the food that you eat or your body can only be as good and can only function as well as the food that you eat. Because in the most literal sense, we are what we eat. And if all you're eating is donuts and Starbucks and protein bars, your body, which miraculously it has the ability to do this, but your body has to create your muscle tissue out of that, your liver cells, your heart cells, your blood cells, all your eye cells. Your body has to somehow find the resources to make these things. And that's why a lot of different problems arise when we're not eating food that is high in nutrition, because we're not giving our body the resources that it needs to build these things. So like I was saying, with organically raised food, ideally the soil is not sprayed with toxic pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, things that are poisoning the soil and disrupting the bacteria and the fungi in the soil, which help to feed the root system, the rhizosphere, as it's called, in the plants. It's like I was saying, if it's not in the soil, it's not going to be in the food. You might have yourself a big, juicy tomato, but it may just be filled with water, and a lot of times you can taste the difference. And that's where our body has the innate sense of what has higher nutrition versus what doesn't. Because usually, as far as a natural food goes, this is different for food that's been heavily processed and engineered to be highly palatable. But when it comes to, comparing an apple versus an apple, it is typically the one that tastes better is the one that has higher nutrition. And if you play around with eating organic versus non-organic food, you will typically find that 9 times out of 10, if your taste buds haven't been completely obliterated by eating a diet high in highly processed foods, that you will notice that the food that is organic does taste better or has a different richness to it than food that is not organic. But again, that's only one aspect of it. And going beyond that, there's a cycle of life and there's a cycle of death when it comes to food. Ideally, nature works in a cycle that perpetuates itself, meaning that the soil provides the nutrition for the plant. The animals eat the plant with the nutrition that comes from nutritious soil. And then in turn, us humans, we eat the plants in the animals. And so if there's high amount of nutrition and a low amount of toxicity in each one of those stages, we're able to give back and help perpetuate the cycle by maintaining a healthy soil level and maintaining healthy plants and animals. But a lot of times, with our conventional practices of agriculture and our overly scientific, materialistic mindset, where we think of food as just energy and we can break it down into its constituent parts and think that the sum is not greater than the whole, or the sum is equal to the whole, which is kind of dangerous thinking when you get into these things. But if the soil doesn't have the nutrition and it's producing a sick plant, and the animal eats the sick plant, and therefore the animal gets sick or has dysfunction, and then we eat the sick animal and therefore we become sick or we have dysfunction. And you really don't have to look too far for proof of this. If you just look around and consider how many people are overweight and obese and unhealthy, and you go to a doctor's office and see how many people are on a myriad of different prescription medications for different diseases, it's not that hard to see that the food that we're eating and the lifestyle that we're living is perpetuating this cycle. And again, I'm looking at this through a lens of high performance. If even the layperson isn't doing well off of eating a conventionally raised processed diet, then what makes you think that being a high-level athlete and continuously breaking our bodies down day after day, that we're going to be able to optimally replenish ourselves with a highly processed or conventionally raised produce or meat? Again, you don't have to look very far to see all of the different injuries and athletes that might look good, but they're breaking down on the inside. The evidence is, there's plenty of evidence to support that. So that's just one level. And so when I think about these things and when I make these decisions, I look at not only how things affect me, but also how they affect my relationships, and then also how they affect the world and the environment as a whole. If what I'm doing, if everyone were to do what I am doing, would the world be a better place? That's a common question that I ask myself about these things. If everybody was supporting conventional agriculture and the depletion and the poisoning of our soils and our waters and our environment, would that make the world a better place? Most people would agree no. And you can see that our environment is declining at a dangerous rate, and a lot of that is due to our monocropping and overutilization of poor farming practices that are depleting the soil. So again, not only is eating organic food good for you and good for your performance because it's providing the nutrition and resources that your body needs to function optimally, but you're also supporting practices that are sustainable, and ideally practices that help to regenerate and restore the earth and the soil in our environment, so that we not only have food, but our kids have food, and our kids have food, and that the population can sustain itself. And that's, when we think of the bigger picture of why we're even doing what we're doing, like, yeah, it's cool to, lift 1,000 pounds or win the Olympics or win Mr. Universe or whatever your dream might be. But if you're doing that at the expense of not only your own health and vitality, but also the health and vitality of those around you, potentially your own kids, and potentially the whole earth as a whole, then, what good are you really doing? Like, what good is that achievement really for you? And again, these are the things that I want to start, putting out there. These are the seeds that I want to start planting for people, because when you get clear on these things, and you get clear on the reasons why you're doing things that you're doing, ultimately you're going to set yourself up for a higher level of performance and for more achievement. Because if you're constantly living in a contradiction where you say you want one thing, but you're practicing another, whether you're conscious of it or not, your body's going to live in a perpetual state of stress, because your creed is not matching your deeds. So that's where I want to end off today, kind of just overlaying the importance of eating an organic diet. And in future videos, we'll get more into the nuances of these things. But let me know if you guys have any questions, and if you want to further this discussion, you can consult me for coaching, whether it's for training, or I do holistic lifestyle coaching, where we get a lot deeper into all of these things outside of the gym that help you perform better in the gym. I am available for that, and that's what I created Optimal Evolution for. And if you wanted a good starting point, you could join our online platform, which gives you a different questionnaires and assessments to help guide you into making these decisions and helping implement these practices for yourself. So until next time, this is Nathan Barna.